Hi, everybody. Welcome to the final panel for this year's Fall Community Forum. Thank you for being here. And hello, everyone there on TV land. We're happy whenever you're watching. Maybe it's today. Maybe it's 5 years into the future. We can't know because now this is indelible, which is great. I am Risa Shoup. I am a co-executive director of A.R.T New York. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. Quick visual description. I am a white person with short dark hair and pink translucent plastic glasses and a gray sweater blazer and a green and white striped shirt. And once again, thank you all for being here in the audience, wherever you are, and thank all of you for joining us today for this final panel. I'm going to begin with a quick land acknowledgement and then some thank yous, and then we're going to get to the heart of the matter here. We would like to take this time to acknowledge that wherever we are currently located on Turtle Island, otherwise known as North America, we are on occupied territory. A.R.T New York's membership in the 5 boroughs of New York City operates on the unceded ancestral land of the Lenape, Wappinger, Canarsie, Rockaway, and Matinecock communities. We want to honor and celebrate all of these indigenous communities, their elders past and present, as well as future generations. We also want to take this time to acknowledge that after there was stolen land, there were stolen people. We want to honor the generations of displaced and enslaved people that built and continue to build the country that we occupy today. Since we are gathered today in virtual space, let's also take a moment to consider the legacies of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art we make leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect indigenous peoples worldwide. We invite you to join us in acknowledging all this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good use of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, anti-racism, and allyship. The virtual part of that land acknowledgement was written by Adrian Wong of Spiderweb Show in Ontario, Canada. And to learn more about whose land you are on, we invite you to visit native-land.ca. Before I turn it over to Talia, I want to offer some heartfelt thank yous to HowlRound, to our streaming partners, Transcend Streaming, to the National Caption Institute that's providing our captioning today, and to Stephanie and Jamie, who are providing us with ASL interpretation today. And now, as promised, without further ado, Talia.
Wait, I don't think so. Hello panelists, hello friends, and hello internet. We are so happy to be here today. We're gonna dive right in with introductions and a brief icebreaker. So our prompt will be your name, pronouns, a brief visual description, the organization you're representing or talking about today and your role with them, and then just one word that comes to mind when you reflect back on the chapter of your life when you closed the doors, metaphoric or otherwise. So good afternoon, my name is Talia Corren. I use she, her pronouns. I am the other co-executive director here at A.R.T New York. And I joined A.R.T New York in December of 2022, and so I am still in the open door chapter of this era. We'll start down with Paul.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Paul Brewster McGinley. I use he, him pronouns. I am a white cis male with rapidly receding salt and pepper, black and white hair, sharp nose, beard, green blazer, blue colored shirt, and khaki pants. I am representing Trusty Sidekick Theater Company today, where We were an organization that was an itinerant organization for children's theater from 2011 to 2024, and still closing. And I worked in every capacity from a stage manager on a show to being the managing director for 5 years to being a board member at the time that we decided to close. And the word that I will choose is mortality.
Great. Thanks, Paul. I'll come back and do a visual description of myself at the end. I forgot. Okay, go ahead.
I'm Megan Carter, she, her pronouns. I am a white cis woman with blonde hair wearing a blue shirt. I was the producing director at SITI Company, also known as Saratoga International Theater Institute, from 2019 until 2022 when we sunset. I had been involved with SITI Company from about 2009 in other capacities. And the word that comes to mind for me is bittersweet.
Hi, my name is Melanie. I have no idea how to describe myself other than I'm wearing orange today.
Yeah.
I am she, her. I am one of the, well, I'm the founder and one of the leaders of what was the Foundry Theater, Inc. And I had a great time. And my one word is phenomenal.
Amazing. And to come back, Talia Corren, I have curly brown hair, shoulder length, white woman wearing a sage green blazer, black top, dark blue jeans, and some goldenrod socks. Okay, so now you have heard who's up here, and we would love to just like take a quick pulse check of who is out there. Recognizing there are also friends in cyberspace, so hi cyberspace friends. But for folks who are in the room, just raise your hand if you are an organizational leader. Organization, however you define that. Okay, great. Leave your hand in the air if that organization has existed for more than 10 years. What about 20 years? What about 30 years? Okay, wow. Okay, so there's some longstanding leadership in the room. Okay, you can put your hands down. Raise your hand if you're an independent artist. Awesome. We love that. Raise your hand if you're currently on staff, holding a staff role. Great. We love to see people raising their hands in multiple ways. That's affirming of, I think, a lot of things. And raise your hand if you're a funder, board member, or otherwise supporter of the field. Okay, great. Giving us a sense of who's here. So I'm really delighted and grateful to be having this conversation today, in part because these are some fantastic people and I'm excited for you to get to know them. And also it feels so appropriate that this is the final conversation happening here at the Fall Community Forum, and also as we inch ever closer to Halloween and Dia de los Muertos, and depending on your traditions, that time of year when we bring death close and we think about what is on the other side. And you know, I think together with members of the field, this team at Art New York has really been thinking about how as theater makers, we hold this tension. On the one hand, we are experts in the ephemeral. We like get a group of people together to tell a story that only happens when we sit together in one room, then we strike the set and we grieve that process and we move on, and maybe we do it again, maybe with a different group of people, maybe the same group of people, maybe with a different set, but it's never the same, right? We know better than most people that you never get to go in the same river twice. And yet, when it comes to how we build our institutions, the containers that we create around our art.
Sorry, guys.
It happens, it's 2025. There's also a weird ringing it's coming from outside. It's coming from outside the room. We can't control it and we're sorry. And if you need to like get up and walk around or like listen from the vestibule, that's totally okay. I just want to acknowledge the current conditions that we're operating in, so that nobody feels gaslit. But I think, you know, that commitment to the ephemeral disappears when we think about institutions, that we have this like unnatural expectation are supposed to be durable or permanent. And we're interested in talking about that. And I think that this conversation, we hope, is one that inspires a kind of curiosity, both about what is perhaps behind the veil, if you will, but also to just think about how we can bring the exploratory joy and generative energy that we bring to creation to the other side, right? What if we took the same care that we do with designing Strike to the way that we think about our organizations? And so I think this is intended to maybe unlock some things that we feel afraid of, and also to make space for like the joy and possibility that is available to us if we allow it to be. And truly, Paul, Melanie, Megan are all brilliant and creative thinkers and leaders who have done hard things. Okay, so we're kicking off with a lightning round question, which is, if the sun setting of your organization was a 3-act play, because we love dramatic structure, what would the titles of those acts be? No description of the events, just the titles of the acts. Paul.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if it's a 3-act play or 3 3-act plays.
Sure.
With each of these as the titles. But
Okay, hit me.
the goo in the chrysalis, space for grief, passing it on, ellipsis, slowly.
Nice.
Okay, so good. We love the drama. This is great. Megan.
Act 1, rolling epiphany. Act 2, exquisite pain. Act 3, madly dancing to the end.
They're so cool. Okay, Melanie.
Okay. Well, there's no Act 1, but there's 3 things.
Okay.
One is, don't you dare miss this archive. And that, well, I won't say what that is.
Yeah.
Number 2 is 25 years of future ideas. And number 3 is a moment on the clock of the world.
Yeah, great. Great. Okay, so I hope your appetites are whetted. I think, you know, the reality of being a human is that when we find something that we like, when we find something that feels good, when we find people we like to work with, we just want to keep doing it. And it's totally natural that what we strive for is the ability to do the thing that we like to do for as long as we can possibly do it. And also, the conditions that we're working in change constantly, usually without our permission. And we're faced with confronting not if, but how we're going to deal with those new circumstances. You know, when our given circumstances change, how does that tell us a way that we want to proceed? And I think, you know, in conversations that we all had preparing for this, like some of those disruptions are so external, some of them are very personal. And I want to talk about, regardless of sort of what the disruption is, like what does that feel like? And when do you get to the point that you're like, hey, it's no longer sustainable to keep pretending like we're operating under the conditions that we used to operate under? And so I feel like this shows up a little bit differently for each of you, so I'll try to ask a more targeted question. Megan, I know that at SITI, there had been sort of robust dialogue that predated your role. And I wonder if you can talk us through sort of what helped unstick and what that, you know, maybe that's the exquisite pain chapter, but I wonder like if you can sort of talk to us about like where there was a real difficulty confronting what had changed.
Yes. So because I didn't mention this earlier, SITI had a 30-year run.
Yeah.
And the way they talked about the company from the moment of inception, they never knew if they were going to have another year. So they sort of lived for a long time in this state of, are we going to go on?
Yeah.
We will go on. And they reinvented themselves several times.
Yeah.
But the moment that I came in as producing director was the moment where they were chasing their tails. They had decision paralysis, and they knew that something needed to change. They had looked at so many different scenarios, growing into a big center for like ensemble theater, bringing in new members, all of those things, and none of it made sense to them. And they were just stuck. And so I literally came to them and said, can I please help?
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to fizzle out.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go out, you need to go out with a bang. And Michelle Preston and I were really the unstickers.
Yeah.
Like basically Michelle was like, okay, we're gonna hire Megan, and then we're gonna do a thing. We're gonna make an archive, we're gonna have a celebratory season, we're
Yeah.
like, finale is happening.
Yeah.
The clock is going. Go.
Yeah. And I feel like one of the things in that story is like how long we can prolong the suffering, right? In that period of chasing its tail, no one was experiencing the joy that they were unwilling to let go of,
Yes.
right? And so I think that recognition that whether it was Michelle or the ensemble or you know, multiple people coming to be like, we shouldn't feel this way. We don't need to feel this way. And it's going to maybe feel temporarily really uncomfortable.
Yes.
But at least we don't have to feel this version of discomfort forever. And I feel like there's real wisdom in that. And so I want to acknowledge that. Paul, I know for you it was different because there was a thing called COVID-19 that played like a really, you know, kind of outsized maybe role.
Yeah,
in your
definitely
transition.
a very big catalyst. I mean, I'm just so grateful for this conversation, so grateful to be in conversation with the two of you for this, and the fact that you're creating space for this in the framing that you are, because this idea of group of people who get together because we love doing a thing is Trusty's story.
Yeah.
You know, we were a nights and weekends part-time passion project for the first several years of the company, and constantly grappling with, are we formalizing beyond this, except that we had already formalized as a 501c3,
Right.
which has a lot of structures that are connected to that. So we're working within that structure of a business, and we came up with a model pre-pandemic that was working really well for us, which was being the experts of producing work for children at places that are made for welcoming audiences, but maybe not children, or welcoming people, but maybe not a theatrical experience there.
Right.
So doing immersive spaces in immersive pieces in non-traditional spaces, or working with large institutions like Lincoln Center, Park Avenue Armory, and several others to be the experts of creating theater for kids that get presented there. So kind of like a local producer-presenter model. That all changed quite a bit when those large institutions needed to, you know, shutter their venues and rethink their own models.
Right.
So the idea of us having that producing model of being the small fish that partners with a bigger fish was no longer possible following the pandemic, and we knew that. We also had multiple people, and when we think of COVID as an accelerator, being one of the things that it did, it accelerated many of us that were in the company for some time to make a next life decision, which created space for new people to come in.
Yep.
But we were also in that space of now having to look at, because we've been in partnership with these larger orgs, we never had access to those audiences as donors or for marketing. And so our actual core audience are the people who have sought us out, right? So we're this small thing. But we immediately got to work with innovation online.
Yeah.
And we were able to get several of the resources that were available to us. So the biggest impact here was actually a bit of a swoon and an upswing that the company had resources. And we said, oh, we're actually in a spot to be able to say, are we going to continue, are we going to grow, are we going to go in a different direction? So the goo in the chrysalis also refers to us thinking through, okay, what are we going to do after, during, throughout this event? And who's going to be there to make it happen? And so we changed the structure and welcomed in new with the hope that that would be a very big next generation for the organization. But we put KPIs in place to say, here's what this needs to look like in a year, in 2 years. We know everything needs to be revenue generating because these old models are not going to work. And we can't just be a group of people that are putting up projects. We also need to really be building the organization.
Yeah.
So we increased our board size, we brought a lot of other folks into the group, and looking at things a little while later, we hadn't made that shift.
Yeah.
So we had to make the call as a team, like before it was too late for us to not be in control of that. And I know that's a later discussion point, so I won't go there yet.
Yeah.
But that's sort of how COVID impacted us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you bring up so many great points, and I feel like there is this, well, in the book about the Foundry, there is a story about Margot Jones, legendary Lord, creator of Lord, basically, the model, and I can't remember exactly, and you'll correct me, I know.
No, I won't.
That she had very specific rules for how that company was to operate, and that when she passed, they tried to continue the company but changed the rules, and that didn't work. And I feel like maybe there is something, Paul, in the story of Trusty, of like there was this impetus to keep going that required you to change some of these foundational rules in a way that then you had to grapple with like, oh no, what is true just doesn't belong anymore. And that sounds like you did the thing that is so reasonable, which is like, let's try. Let's like push into an opportunity for transformation,
Right.
which I think is also like a very natural theater maker impulse. And then, having to kind of pull back into something.
And to do that from the space of, at that point, being on the board
Yeah.
within a 501c3 structure that has the duty of care, that has the fiduciary responsibility of the organization.
Yeah.
To have to look at it from that side and say, okay, we've been talking for years about we're building the shows, we also need to be building the org, and that includes the base.
Some of
and
these other
all those
things.
supporters and all of that, right?
Yeah.
So that is of no fault of any of the artists or the people that were doing great work within.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
And so then Melanie, I know that the story of the Foundry's conclusion felt really different to you. And I wonder if you can just like talk to us about, I think on our call you were like, it was so fast. And so, I think especially in contrast to these other examples, like, what was that like? And how was it a relatively expedient decision for you all?
Well, you'll excuse me, I wrote notes down so that I wouldn't forget what I wanted to
Yeah, I
answer.
love that.
Would be great, thank you. So the
I have
thing,
notes.
okay, so we were definitely moving quickly in the final year, for sure. But it was based on the 2 years that came before.
Yeah.
And in the 2 years that came before, not quite two, maybe a year and a half something, can't remember. But there were several steps on which we began to explore the company's future without me in it. Before we absolutely knew that 25 years was the perfect time to sunset the Foundry. So first off, in the discovery, we had a lot, can I read something to you, do you mind? Okay, and then interrupt me, I love to be interrupted. So if you have a, wait a minute, what are you talking about, or anything, I'm perfectly happy. First off, the discovery of closing had a lot to do with the timing of the changes in the company's leadership. The departure of artists and social justice practitioners, because we had shared leadership. We had shared leadership since 2005, I think, or 4. And so they, together with me, had continued to experiment, even though they had been in the same, every year is a new year. What the heck are we doing now? Really? Yes. So the departure of artists and social justice practitioners who, together with me, had been continuing to experiment with the unusual ways we'd been exploring the evolution of the company. And that's really what we were wondering about. We were talking a lot about the evolution, with them leaving, with me leaving. Who are the gorgeous people that are going to take this over?
Yeah.
And we all together, we met with a lot of different people. But we realized, and we spent a lot of time with a lot of different people, both in social justice work and in artistic work. And the more we did it, the more we thought, this isn't for the Foundry itself. This is for them. This is for what they're going to do, in what shows they want to do, in what future they want to have. this is for them, the Foundry's not for them.
Yeah.
And so we tried. We really did try to figure out what it meant to open up the invitation that was useful for people. And so when the circumstances became clear, we just stepped in. And what we did was we put together we put the Foundry's book up. We chose its writers and the right publisher, which was Haymarket Books. We had to choose the right home for the archive because people wanted to take it. We were really blown away by that, but we were really happy to give it to the New York City Library.
We love.
We designed and created a website that was not anything like the website we had when we were running the company.
Right.
We made the website to sort of detail what we think we meant by the Foundry, and we had money for it for 25 years. So we closed on the 19th, at the very end of the 19th, and then everything fell apart in the 20s.
Wow. So it's your fault.
It's totally my fault.
That's my takeaway.
Totally my fault.
Great. Glad we solved that.
And so we moved like crazy people.
Yeah.
We just kept going because we wanted to meet the birthday. We wanted to meet 25 years. We wanted to dance for sure, and we wanted to have a reason to dance. And so we did it in the Ukrainian ballroom, which is where we did a million different things. I have a feeling you did stuff in there at some point. I don't know you, but behind those glasses, I'm sure I do. And so we did it, and the opening of the closing and the opening of the Foundry was we finished the book in time for the birthday.
Yeah.
And we gave like 300 books away, which my poor publisher was just. But I warned them that was going to happen.
That's what they
so
signed
we
up
gave away a bunch of books, and then we sold books, and then we danced for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And that was that.
Yeah.
And that's the Foundry Theater.
I feel like we're going to come back to the idea of the dance and, like the celebration that we get to have. But before I get there, I feel like a thread that all of you sort of surfaced is that at the heart of all of these decisions are people. And I think that it is one of the big blocks, and I think it's one of the big fears that comes up when we talk about sunsetting, closure, contraction. And I think that part of that is because there's like the work, the like beautiful purpose, collaboration, the dance, the like spark that we all chase. And then there is also making a living in a city that only gets more expensive, in a country that does not prioritize healthcare, universal basic income, dignity in retirement, emergency services. And I feel like it puts a tremendous emotional and really practical load on decisions, especially when you've been paying people's salaries, right? And I wonder, I feel like all of you sort of spoke to this thing of like, it didn't feel right, or where there was real difficulty is in that tension of like, what does it look like to care for people? And how do we make decisions as a group of people that acknowledge where we have limitations to what we can offer, and then also, but where can we find real empowerment in that? And I throw that to anybody because I feel like all of you talked to it in some way.
Yeah, so I just want to say one of the things with SITI Company is that they had decided quite some time ago to make sure that the ensemble was taken care of. So they were all equity actors.
Yeah.
SITI worked on a A.R.T contract. Like, these were living wages.
Right.
And in addition to doing shows, they did training. So for a very long time, everything about the leadership at SITI Company was trying to make sure that the performers were paid and had health weeks and all of those things. So that was like a constant. And so and this was a group of the median age of the ensemble in 2019 was like 55.
Yeah. It's a tough
Yeah.
moment.
It was a very tough moment. And so it's like, well, what does this look like, and how do we emotionally take care of, but financially take care of this group of people? And we actually were preparing to announce the sunset when the pandemic happened.
Yeah, wow.
And we held off because we're like, this can't be about the pandemic.
Right.
But a piece of our legacy plan was what we called transition grants for artists. They weren't nearly as large as we wanted them to be.
Yep.
But something to say, you've been part of this company for anywhere from like 15 to 30 years. Here's some money.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we had decided that all of the money that was left was basically going into making work. So, I mean, we had one of the first equity contracts in the pandemic, I think.
Wow.
Because we were just like, we just have to pay people. Like, we just have to get people paid as much as possible. So.
Yeah. I feel like what you just described makes me think of like estate planning. It's like estate planning for a company, and like how, you know, you want to leave as much as you can, while also taking care of the life, you know, while it's happening. And
Which is why you have to plan.
Which is great. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Melanie, Paul, anything particular come up for you?
More notes. This is a really interesting question for me because because caretaking for people making a living were ongoing for us. From day one. The cost of in-house salaries, our productions, our social justice communities were consistently discussed and measured in relation to one another economically. I never made more than $65K because I could live off that. When other people came on to join me, some of them were in that because they could afford it. Those that needed more got more.
Yeah.
We were really, the idea of money and capitalism, of course, was so much a part of a lot of what we were thinking about all the time, every year. Because, well, if you go on the website, it's a great website, guys.
It really is. And the book is great.
Okay, my salary became a consistent $65K, and we talked a lot about money. In fact, it was what we started to add our budgets of the company for a year and our budgets of shows. We put those in our program ages ago, and it was a relief always to us, so that everybody could see, like, this is how much it costs to make a show, everybody. This is how much it costs to take care of people, to take care of ourselves. You know, and that was kind of a powerful, we didn't know how powerful it was gonna be, but it was. And then we were pretty transparent when we interviewed new folks to come on and join us. It was always interesting when somebody had, and we were very clear about, we want to know how much you want to make.
Yeah.
Like, what do you need to make? And there were some people that said 120,000, you know what I mean, without even blinking. And immediately, not me, but somebody else would say, oh, I think, is that what you need? And sometimes they would get flushed. And we would try to have conversations about it because. And so we never brought anybody that couldn't afford to do the show, to do work at the Foundry, and we could measure what they needed to get. And it was interesting, really, because to actually then have conversations about what you need to live properly was just we were always talking about this, and it was really useful in certain ways. And in 2011, like, we were transparent, we typically asked how much was enough. And then in 2011, we did a show called How Much Is Enough, which was a series of questions. The play was a series of questions posed to the audience by 3 different characters. And it was really about how do What are we doing? How are we doing this? How can we afford it? Can we afford it? On and on. It was like some really great questions. And so we were just constantly, this was a constant, money was a constant discussion.
Yeah.
How it applied to what we were doing, how artists, and we, from day one, because we raised a certain amount of money immediately in that first year, not a ton, but enough. And we had we did our show in the, oh goodness, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it was inside the Brooklyn Bridge Anchorage. And we did a huge show in there. And why am I raising that? Because it's when we actually started talking about money, which was in '94. And so we were never, nobody ever got in trouble, nobody ever was broke at the Foundry, ever, never. We never owed anybody money in 25 years. I'm so proud of that I would wear like a
sign.
Yes, and walk through the city of New York. We never owed one person $1.
I mean, I think the other thing that you're pointing to, Melanie, is that like a practice of transparency that I think was also embedded in, a very early co-leadership model that was embedded in, how you made work, what you made work about, and how you invited audiences to participate in that, set an expectation of financial transparency, but also fluency, right? Like showing an audience a budget brings them into a kind of fluency that I think many organizations don't have a practice of. And then when they hit these crunchy moments, everybody has to really do an aggressive gear shift. And I wonder if one of the things that facilitated the Foundry's transition was that you had this consistent vocabulary with one another of what do you need? Can we make that work? How do we really talk about that? And I think that's a really interesting kind of thing to plant as those are skills we could all practice more, even and especially before we need them.
Well, it's especially, oh boy, it's a much bigger conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's a much bigger conversation to look at what we do in a year.
Yeah.
And what, we didn't have a building, the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Right? There just was, there was things that, what I will say that I think about often is that over the years, there was always some kind of conversation about, we don't have anyone to talk to. We're doing these insane things. And we don't really, it would be so great if we had other people that we could say, would you do it this way? Or we're sticking this up our you-know-what, is this right?
Well, I was just thinking, these three organizations were very nimble organizations.
Yeah.
Even at SITI's highest operating budget point, we said, it wasn't really an institution.
Right.
Not with a capital I. It was a group of people that started making work together and then kept making work together and then figured out how to do it in capitalism.
Right.
And take care of themselves somewhat and be successful. And it was ultimately, as everyone got older, it was not sustainable.
Right.
Not without a massive shift in how the company operated.
Yeah.
And I think they would say this themselves, they were who they were.
Yes.
They didn't want to be an institution with a capital I.
I think that's a great observation, and Paul, I do want to hear from you about the sort of caretaking and human piece, but I think it's such a great point, Megan, that all of these companies, you've sort of described it as a perpetual opt-in, right? The spirit of the company was a perpetual do we want to do this? Yeah, let's do it. And in various ways and maybe with varying degrees of muscle or format. But I think that's a great point that when you have a building, when you have assets, when you have other sort of institutionalized trappings, it makes any of these decisions both more difficult and complex, and also the stakes feel much harder. Maybe not higher, but harder, because there's a level of complexity. But yeah, Paul, I want to come down to you.
No, this has all been so fascinating and all connected, because I think the alignment of expectations around what the organization is and who will be making that work and what they're giving and getting
Yes.
is a big part of this moment of leadership shift, and especially when the folks who have been in it and close to it for so long are coming from one perspective on what the baseline is for that, versus new folks coming in who, despite maybe seeing all of it on paper or having those conversations, there's still, and rightly so, sometimes different expectations around what the job should be or how the institution, because they didn't necessarily come into it with it not being an established thing.
Yep.
And that's valid. Like, I now currently work full-time at an organization that's been around for over 85 years.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that same energy I felt being in that space. And I can imagine the same is true for somebody that is also coming into a space after a few years of work experience to a company that has had 10 plus years.
Yep.
But the development of the company, like being so nimble, was both the superpower and ultimately the reason why
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. So that being said,
Yeah.
I wish that larger institutions would have these conversations.
So do we.
Because they are
most of the
also
people
not
who
meant
work
to
at the
last forever.
institutions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do most of the people who work at the institutions. And
Yes.
yeah. And I think it's such a good, I think that it's one of the lessons that I think we hope we can all start hearing in different ways, is like practicing this nimbleness in small ways, in ways that feel challenging, is a way of building muscle for the times when you can see things in a new way.
Can I pop in there too to say
Yes.
that, like, I love this at all different scales, because it's about organizing the organs,
Yeah.
the literal parts of our body that have different functions,
Yeah.
that are living, breathing things. And so
Yep.
it's all about the people in each of these workspaces.
Yep.
And it can be, we're in the Hames studio. I worked for Roundabout full time at the moment where Todd Hames passed away, who was a very pivotal leader. And the thing that he would often say is, I will retire the moment that I can solve the structural deficit. Mortality beat him to that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is one of the largest producing nonprofit theaters, founding board member of Art New York, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? And still, it's in there in terms of an organization is made up of the people, whether it's 3 people, 1 person, or many 200 plus working there.
Yeah.
And when those things are not in alignment, right? And so for Trusty, when there wasn't enough blood being pumped by the heart and the engine of that, like, then it doesn't matter what's happening in other spaces, because it's not able to function fully.
Yeah.
There's also, like, theaters are not immune to the capitalism bug,
Oof.
which is
No.
just growth, 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 growth.
Yep.
Building.
Not every theater needs to grow. Not every theater needs a building. Like, bricks and mortar is not, if you can't pay people, you do not need a building.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, but even if you can pay people, even
probably
if you
don't
can
need a
pay them,
building.
you don't need a building.
Yes.
Do you know that in Brazil, there's only one company in Rio, not even in Sao Paulo. In Rio, there's only one company that has a building.
Wow. That's incredible. to
It
think
is
about.
incredible.
That's bigger. I mean, Rio's bigger than New York City, right?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So like,
That there are many empty storefronts that I would be happy
Yeah.
to produce things in if the city would like to do something.
Not to mention giving more room
Yeah.
to the artists to actually be their own. And I thank Ben Pesner for what he's been doing.
we'll start a list of requests.
Yes.
Access to storefront venues we'll put at the top of the list. Okay, we actually want to popcorn this out into the room a little bit. One of the words that came up a lot when we were talking is this idea of what legacy is. And so we're not going to ask anybody to, come on mic, but just like pop out with, what does legacy mean for you? What comes up when you think about legacy? Yeah.
I think impact.
Impact.
And that can be a lot of different things, whether
Yeah.
body of work. But when I think of like legacy, I think like what was the imprint or the impact that there.
Love that. Love that. Anybody else?
Longevity comes to mind for me.
Longevity?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Lasting impression on the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, were you gonna?
I think of the Sondheim song Children in Art.
Oh, sure. Yeah, children in art. Yeah. When in doubt, leave it to Sondheim. Pick a Sondheim lyric if you don't know the answer. It's always right. Anything else that yeah, Risa.
I think knowing that you belong to something.
Or you belonged to something.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, belonging. Recordings or anything like that.
Yeah. Anything else that? I just want to ask a question to the host if I can. Sure. Is there anybody that's in a building that has ever wondered about letting it go? Sure. Yep. Again, are there people who are ready for peace space or WP let go of this building? Oh yeah, WP let go of that space. Yeah.
I would say the opposite. Like my theater company has had the opportunity to take on leases, and we very intentionally and specifically said, this feels like this would take us away from the work we want to do, and that is not something we want to do. Like I actually don't think we'd be around as long if we had that burden of
For sure.
of space.
I think that's true for a lot. That's definitely true for us too. But I'm wondering, people who are working in institutional buildings, if there's ever any conversation about alternative, alternative work in other places, alternative, just a different kind of growth that comes out of a building, people that they can invite to take over parts of the building.
I don't know that we've got one in the room right now besides our New York.
I mean, I've done it a few times, but not quite in the way that you're talking about. So there were, I mean, I worked at Shoshana for 5 years, a very long time ago. I'm constantly letting things go, letting spaces go. And also sometimes keeping them far longer than you thought you would, which then back into the question you were asking, like, okay, so what can we do, what can we do, what can we do?
Yeah.
Recently with the Invisible Dog, we let go of it on Bergen Street. There wasn't an opportunity to pass it on there. But yeah, like a lot of times. And so yes, sometimes there was a way to think about who else, what more, and sometimes it was digging into a practice of my beliefs. And that's different, and every time I'm
Yeah, I worked for Disciplinary Theater in San Diego for some years. They're a very identifying theater, so they're very community oriented. And they actually own their own theater, which is, I think they're the only ones in San Diego that own their own theater. So it's a theater town. So it's really interesting because they're just the smallest budget theater, and they're the ones that own their theater. But I think what they did with their space was really smart. They did a remodel that coincided with the pandemic, and they downsized all of their office space.
Wow, the buzzing. For the friends on the internet, the buzzing just stopped.
Making noise for you.
And they created a bar, like a Joe's Pub kind of experience in the front.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really smart because they diversify their earned income, and so they actually have an earned income stream now. And they also they're much more education focused than some of the theaters I've worked for. So they provide a lot of space for different queer identifying nonprofits in the region to use. And they also they have a group called Lambda, the Lambda Archives, that they rent to. They might not even charge them, and that is Lambda's space. It's very precious. So I think they're a positive example of like how to use your space.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. And sorry for the pop quiz, popcorning for the microphone usage. Great. Anything else that comes up for you all about?
In the legacy space, I'm so glad that we were thinking about the now and the like what's happening here, because I kept coming back to it being a fondness in the presence about there being a lasting impact of the past. That like there's the in children's theater, in the arts education world, we will say like nobody invented Zip Zap Zop. Like nobody owns it. We're just practicing. We're passing on the practices. But like Zip Zap Zop is a legacy, and we all have either a fondness or not with that sort of theater game, right? Like, and I think that for a company like Trusty Sidekick, we were both new and building and standing on everything that had come before us, right? Yeah. And like using every practice that we knew from each part of our training. And now our legacy, right, was about passing on the existing resources of literal cash assets to organizations that were able to carry on the work in ways that we were no longer able to do. And we were able to also then throw a great party for the people that were caring a lot about the work and that had done it, so that we had that moment of closure. And then our last sort of enduring is this idea of the archive, which in part will be the digital archive side of it, and then is also a handbook. We're calling it the Atlas because we were always all about like the map and finding we're the trusty sidekicks. You're on your journey as the hero, and X marks the spot. So here's the atlas of all of our different bless you methods and ways of doing the work. But because we were not grown enough as an organization, that book is going to be available just free. Ebook. Like the only way to do it was for nobody to make any money with it, including the people that wrote it. Aside from a single fee that came out of our closure. So, like part of our legacy was actually saying we need to stop making the pieces before we're out of money to put that legacy in place and have that careful sunset that allows for those things to be there in the future.
I mean, all of you, I think, were super thoughtful about at least two things. One of them is this like preservation. All of you have, archive materials, books, and also all of you were really committed to throwing a damn good party. And I feel like we love a party. They're also so important, right? Like there's a catharsis, there is like a need to stomp it out, to yell it out. I'm thinking of like the wake that Walker Space had. I'm thinking of, the stories, the way that Rattlestick welcomed folks into that space to like say goodbye to that version of that theater. And I think that both in physical spaces and when we release like these deep collaborations, the party is so important. And I want to take a moment to like talk about that celebration as catharsis and also as a way to like allow ourselves to lean into the joy of what is possible on the other side, right? I think there's always like a lot to mourn, to grieve, but I think it's also important for us to like live into what is created in that space. And so I just, any amazing stories from the parties or anything that you want to sort of uplift about like why that felt so essential and what that did for you all and for your communities.
I can jump in if you all are thinking.
Please do.
Okay. Ours was last November, so it's been almost a year, which is wild. I think that the thing that keeps coming to mind is, having a great party also requires a great party planner. And when you are the grieving party, you don't necessarily plan your funeral, right? But then you have to. And so we had the wonderful resource of bringing in some third-party folks to help us with the project management of our whole wind down process. And that was so pivotal to be able to like have a little bit of distance and for us to be able to, be the bride or be the mourner, depending on how we're feeling in each moment, right? But the party itself, we just kept saying, how are we going to make this as much of a trusty experience as possible? And so then we did the things that answered that question. And it was a moment, because we had been far away from each other physically for a long time, it was a lot of people coming back into the room. And there had been people that had, maybe left the company under different circumstances 4 years before the pandemic, and then they were still coming home for this and all that. So having that reunion, a friend had literally said to her girlfriend afterwards, yeah, I liked going to that funeral for that theater company you knew those people at.
Yeah.
Right?
That's so nice. Yeah. Yeah, but I love that. I love that. And I also I really appreciate you highlighting needing that outside presence. And I think, in some ways, Megan, that was also part of your role is be the outside person who helps us get across the finish line and hold all of the big things and also just make sure that we just keep chipping away at the timeline to get where we're going.
They definitely all hated me at one point.
Sure.
It was just we just have to keep, and they made so much work in the last year. So we had many parties, but the last sort of moment for SITI was the last show that they made was Christmas Carol, a very SITI Company Christmas Carol. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And we had our final performance, and just, I was in the staff were in the audience, and we all ran backstage, and everyone was just but we also had to pack up and leave because we were at the Fisher Center at Bard. Yeah. And so it was this kind of weird, everybody, I just remember everybody kept holding on to each other, where it was where do we go? Where do we go? What do we do now? This is the last thing that we made, and weirdly, because I didn't get to have feelings through any of that. I broke at that performance.
Yeah, I bet.
Because I was I've just been holding everybody's emotions. And then it was oh God, it's over.
Yeah, and ghosts.
And you know how you grieve at the end of a production?
Yeah.
Just multiply that.
Right. It's the end of a production, the end of summer camp, the most meaningful relationship of your life.
Yeah.
All in one.
I don't know if anybody in this room knows Ellen Lauren, but Ellen Lauren cried.
Oh.
That's difficult.
Wow. I can't even imagine it.
And held me.
Wow. Wow.
Melanie, do you want to tell us anything about your party? Or, I think for you, you've talked about how important it was for you to hit that sort of 25 years, that be sort of racing with the clock, and also
we were late. We were late.
Sure. We're a year is such a funny amount of time anyway.
It wasn't a whole year,
right?
but it wasn't on the birthday.
But I wonder if you could just reflect on kind of did you have sort of a similar moment of catharsis? Did it feel like you got to live in it in that moment, or was it sort of after for you?
It was so full because, oh my God, it was big handfuls of velvet and blood. I mean, it was so full. And I can say a couple of things. One is that there were some people, some artists who I love and still love, were so sad.
Yeah.
They were really, a few of them were really mad at me. Yeah. That I was part of closing the Foundry down.
Yeah.
And because it was a strange heffalump, that thing, and there wasn't anything else that people, So there were some people that couldn't come to the party.
Yeah.
And that, I missed them.
Yeah.
One of the hilarious things that happened at the Foundry, at the party, is that we were in the Ukrainian ballroom, and our office was just upstairs. So there was a staircase for people to come up, and there were a lot of, she's not here, I thought she was here. There were a lot of interns welcoming people and doing what else. And so coming up the stairs was Taylor Mack and, may he rest in peace, David Schweitzer. They were coming up the stairs to enter the big ballroom. And they said, and one of them said to this young woman, where's Melanie? And she said, who's Melanie?
Amazing. How quickly they forget.
And how it began.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it was like, you can disappear from running it.
Yeah.
Boom, you can disappear.
Yeah.
Yes, oh my God. I mean, I had to laugh because it was hilarious.
Yeah.
But then I was like, the next day, I was like, wow, I really am gone.
Wow. It's like you were raptured at your own.
Absolutely. And everything I wanted to get done in time, we got done in time. And then what happened?
Yeah.
Then COVID happened.
Yeah.
Not even 3 months later.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a kind of cross-eyed change.
You know, when I got here today, and it always happens, I always go to the city office. It will always be the city office to me, but it reminds me that actually the very last moment of city was like me and Megan Hanley and one of the, like, not interns, but like one of the folks who had trained with city closing out the office.
Yeah.
And that was like the last. I think Michelle, who wasn't working at City then, she had already moved on to Lamone, actually came to like close the office.
Yeah.
We never closed the office. The Foundry office continues.
Great.
Because it was so cheap.
We'll just send you mail there.
It's in the Ukrainian National Home. We were there for 24 years initially.
Yeah.
And we kept it because it was cheap, and friends can go in there, and right now UTR is in there, and and my office is still there, and I just couldn't strike it.
Yeah. Okay, so I actually feel like it's so, there's something so validating. I feel like there's something so validating to you not being able to let go of your office. Like, and I mean that only with respect that I think that it's so real to need something. And, you know, a place where you've gone every day for 25 years doesn't just become a regular place ever again.
Correct.
And I think the way that we imprint on spaces and on each other in these deep collaborations, like, no matter what we do to put a bow on it, to put a pin in it, to, you know, sage or do whatever you're gonna do, like it's hard. And I think all of you have also mentioned, like, people are disappointed.
Yeah.
You know, that there are people, no matter how much caretaking, no matter how much change management, to use the jargony term, we do, like, people are wounded. And being okay with that, and also allowing that, and also like honoring that all of those things can be true at the same time, I think is a big piece.
I'm so glad you're saying that, because it's this idea we kept hearing, well, this feels really fast. And it's all about when you get access to the information. Because this hasn't been a fast thing from where I've sat. It's been many years and actually different generations, but you couldn't know about all of the things that we knew about, which is actually part of the structure that we're in here with this hierarchy thing of being a board and having some staff and then having very dedicated volunteers. That's all part of the sauce. Like, we never had a physical office, but we have a storage unit. There were a lot of precious things in the storage unit, and so making sure that we literally had office hours of someone's going to be sitting at the storage unit, and any artist who worked on any of these things that wants to claim your work, like, come grab it, that wants materials for the next thing. We've got cotton swabs, come grab them. But it's this last 10%, like, if you remember, my third act title was like passing it on ... slowly, because it's about this last 10% that now I'm the one, you know, we released most of the board. We've only had the exec committee. The staff, of course, went away at the time that we had to do that, which was really hard. All of our alums came back for the big celebration party, and we held and we cheered and we clinked, and I was like, yeah, I've still got a checklist like this, and the Attorney General's office is still seeking another pass at that form and all of those things, you know. And, like, I was emailing with those folks earlier today. You know, like, it's still part of how this all has to. We were so close to having our archive passed off to a really cool space. and then they ghosted us. But I don't know if that librarian still has a job, so I can't,
Right.
you know, it's 2025. I can't hold them to any of that. So it's this like closing up the last bits of it is really tricky. I mean, every theater leaves a ghost light on.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is for us yet.
The legal entity that is SITI Company is actually just dissolving this year.
Yep. Okay.
I stopped trying to do anything.
Yeah, you can sort of just let it go.
I let it go.
But SITI's actually, I'm on the board of the legal entity that is SITI, and the dissolution is happening at the end of this year.
Yeah.
And then I'm taking the archive, the digital archive. I'm going to be the steward of the digital archive.
Great.
And I need to talk to Art New York about archives.
Sure.
And same, so we should also chat
Great.
about this, because
Great.
part of it was like,
I'll put
here's
it on
some
the
money.
list.
Here's some money to go run the website for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's no other sort of
Yeah.
approach for that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Whew. Okay, there are so many great threads, and I also feel like there are so many things that you all just had to learn by doing it. Like there is not, you know, in the way that there is sort of like a way, and Art New York has certainly contributed to this, a way of organizations developing structure, formation. How does it feel when you write your first grant application? You know, there's not really a roadmap for navigating all of these conversations, the decisions. There's probably a roadmap, you know, there's a checklist for the Attorney General, right? But like, I think, what do you wish you had known? Or like, what was the thing that if you could gift past you with the knowledge that you have today, like what would you offer?
That's tough.
I do want to tell everyone to archive.
Yeah.
Now. And don't just pile things in storage.
Yeah.
And document on purpose. Yeah, so, you know, actually, like, if you're filming, you know, if you film your shows, make sure that you have both a little physical library and a digital library, and maybe back that digital library up.
Yeah.
And start thinking about, if you're older than, you know, digital, start thinking about what you have that's pre-digital, because it is a process to do that. You don't think about archives when you're making it, but just somebody's going to care at some point. And so actually, like, putting that together, and no one can afford an archivist, I understand that, but you know, figuring out, like, amongst your staff how you can kind of keep track of everything.
Yeah, that's good guidance.
The show wrap, sort of, we added it to our, like, when we close a show, here's what goes into our Google Drive folders, which ended up being such a godsend for when it was time to put all of that into a single space. The other thing that we had done was, as a company, in COVID, we were able to, because we were non-union, all of our artists were able to give us permission to share full-length archival videos digitally to the world for limited times. We had all of our full-length productions like ready to go and set, which was really an incredible thing.
Yeah.
What was your original prompt again, Talia?
Like, what do you wish you had
The
known,
wish we
or
had
like,
known?
you know, what was a real tough thing to learn as you went?
In the prep, that was actually the one I literally kept scrolling past, thinking on trying to answer, and never did.
Great.
Because I think it's just, what I kept coming back to was, what would I remind myself of then, which was like, trust your gut. You know what the answer is, and there's a lot of voices that are going to be giving you every reason for why, and it's important to listen to all those things, but then, like, I needed to look back for myself and be like, you knew when we were having the conversation the first time that this is where we were going to go. Yeah. And like, that first conversation happened like a long time ago,
Yeah.
not at 2018, not at 2019, you know? Like,
Yeah.
so when you know that, like, listen, I
Yeah.
think would be the thing that
Yeah.
I wish I kept reminding myself of, and then I'll go back to, like, just keep surrounding yourself with incredible humans,
Yeah.
because they will hold you up, and you can hold them up, and we can get through it. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I do feel like there's something about that, like trusting the feeling of inevitability before it feels like the sword of Damocles, right? Like allowing yourself to really consider before it feels so oppressive, so heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think anytime any company goes into a strategic planning process, they need to ask if they should still exist in
Yes.
Yeah.
5 years.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I think
Absolutely.
there is so much opportunity to really ask, what does success look like? And what are the conditions necessary for that success? That if you're not really actively asking that as part of a strategic plan, like it's not strategic and it's not a plan. Sweater weather. But I think you can't really engage with a plan if you don't understand what those conditions are, and if they have changed because I don't want to do that thing anymore, because that thing doesn't feel as fun as it used to, because we lost the lease on our beloved space. Like, any of those things are really valid reasons to have asked for real, which is such a good segue to our final question. And I think Melanie was the inspiration for this question. And, I think one of the things that we've been talking about a lot at Art New York is how we cultivate this kind of curiosity, right? Which is connected to everything that we were just talking about of, like, what does success really look like and what are the conditions that are required for that success, is that it requires a kind of curiosity that I don't think we as leaders always practice as much as we should, because we're rushed for time, we don't have enough resources, we take last year's budget, we add 10% and call it done, and hope for the best. And I think that what we all are saying is that there is a practice of curiosity that creates the possibility of bold change that we need to do more of. And Melanie, the question that you brought up in one of our first conversations was, we need to be asking better questions. We as individuals, as collectives, and so I wonder, what are the questions that you think we could be asking ourselves? What do you want people to be asking?
What do I wish? Well, that's a good question, because it would be like, who could we have talked to over the years that, what?
Yeah.
Well, a big question would be seasons.
Oh. Yeah.
Like the idea of getting rid of the idea of
Sure.
seasons, because we don't make seasons, we make art.
Yes.
Right? And so does it mean that it happens from this time to this time? And then it's like, I do think the way we look at time, especially now, Jesus Christ, but I do think that seasons are something to reconsider.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to reconsider them? And what are the questions to ask to even think about it? That would be tasty, I think.
Yeah.
I think actually, imagine if you could have a year with nothing. Like, imagine if your theater gave itself to other people and took a year off. Like, what if you weren't every single year doing the same, or not even the same, like we were never doing the same, but it doesn't matter. We were still a year because we were asked to be a year, and we paid, did whatever we had to do. But we were always like futzing around with, okay, but we can spread it out. We can, if we do it now, it's okay if it comes up in July the 1st, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Yeah.
So that occurs to me. The other thing that occurs to me a lot and has forever is the idea of less and less ownership of buildings, whether rental or owner.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say that this isn't really vibrant, because it is, and and then there's the great John Malpede, who you know. So I don't mean nobody should have a theater, but I do think we have too many goddamn theaters in this city, that's for sure. There's too many.
I mean, I think the other thing that you're naming, which came up at the beginning of the conversation, is that both the sort of like time rat race, you know, of like, how many weeks do we have for equity health insurance? How many, you know, how many performances can you put on your DCLA application? How many, you know, this sort of churn that happens to us that is also so connected with capitalism and the like insatiable maw of like growth and expansion. Any questions that we can ask that disrupt that feel so healthy and as you said, like sort of juicy, exciting. Yeah.
And how do we share resources?
Yes,
Like,
right.
In a really tangible way. Like,
Yeah.
And I think more and more theaters are having, small theaters at least, are having this conversation about how to share resources.
Yes.
But I do think egos get in the way a lot because it's like,
we're trained.
but we have this vision.
We're trained for
and
that
we
ego.
have this vision. But like, I mean, I'm seeing it because I'm consulting now that it's like, I actually can serve multiple small theaters and serve them all better because I'm across them. So like, everybody doesn't need a marketing director. Everybody doesn't need a development director.
Right.
Like, there are ways, and then how do we find space and share space in a way that's not about everybody building a building and then being trapped by the building for 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think like this is so much of why Art New York is interested in this conversation, right? Is that there is we have an interest, I think, in both more explicitly and implicitly supporting those kinds of collaborations and resource sharing that makes it possible for people to disrupt what doesn't feel like it serves us. And also, I think there is such a relationship between the kind of thinking that makes that kind of innovation possible and also being really clear about like, oh, I don't need to have that thing. Like, it was maybe never mine to begin with.
Yeah.
And like, I can release my attachment to feeling like I'm the one who does.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, probably a whole other conversation is, you know, about like the ego and again, like the reason why we build all of these things is because there's an impulse that says like, I have this idea and I want to try it. And then people are like, I like that idea, right? You know, that we all from some formative moment attached to that. And so I do think that there is something that requires a lot from us to like challenge and push through what that will bring up. Yeah.
I'd be curious to know what questions you wish people would ask.
What questions I wish people would ask, or them?
You and
Me.
them.
Okay, well, I'll ask some that I really love. What does success look like, and what are the conditions that are needed to achieve that? A question that came up in a panel yesterday that Risa was leading was, what are we optimizing for? Like, you can't be trying to do better at everything at the same time. And so if you have to pick something that you're optimizing for, are we optimizing for our fundraising strategy? Are we optimizing for this really innovative artistic process, right? Like, I think real clarity about like what we're optimizing for and not letting it be just chasing growth or chasing a building, right? That really getting curious about that. And I also think it would be great for people to think about, what can I share?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot that I'm really thinking about around like models for mutual aid and the ways that, you know, especially under oppressive authoritarianism, like we are all gonna be challenged to think differently about what we have and what we can give and what we can give up for our collective survival and thrivability. And so I think there's a lot about like, what can I give up?
Yeah.
That I think is interesting.
Can I echo some of the,
Yeah.
This is what I wrote down in advance. So like, this is truly just echoes of everything that is there. Is the entity, mission, and resources in alignment? What's the business plan? Can I justify it to someone outside the field?
Yikes.
No.
Who else could be partnering with us to do this work? And how are we sharing resources to reach our intended audiences and communities?
Yeah.
It's, these are the same questions
Yeah.
that you all have been talking about.
I have another question,
Yeah.
which is marketing. Okay, now I know that I'm older in terms of my relationship to I was going to say social justice, to social media, but I'm really concerned by what we swallow as artists, as people who run theaters and don't run theaters, but anybody. I think that what we are made to swallow so quickly over and over again, especially in the marketing department, we have to ask new questions about how, even the word marketing. We cut the word. We changed the word marketing at the Foundry Theater to invitation, period. We never had a marketing director. We never discussed it. Never. And I feel like that's a great thing to be able to say, to have lived with.
Yeah.
But it's worse now than
Yeah.
it's ever been. And it's not only worse, it's tattooed now in 20 seconds flat. And
Everything's sound bites.
yeah, and so I just think that the way we invite audiences to the work that we want to share, that we really want, we want to give gifts to,
Yeah.
then we have to continue to find other ways to make the invitation, I think, and not the market.
And we have to resist it being transactional.
Definitely.
The movement,
Relational.
the Movement Theater Company, who I actually think objectively has some of the best marketing that I've seen, like it's fantastic.
Change the word, just change the word.
Flashback to yesterday's marketing session with Deidre Harrington of the Movement.
Exactly, but they don't talk about
They don't talk about
marketing,
it.
they talk about community.
Yeah.
They talk about community engagement, they talk about their people.
Yeah.
Right.
And how to connect with their people.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing as like, you know, like networking as a thing. So when I ran the WP lab, I would, you know, sort of teach the lab artists how to network, but I'm like, let go of the word.
Yeah.
It's just about connecting with
Yeah.
people. Fundraising is just about connecting with
Right.
people. Like, if we can, like, really dig into that,
Yeah.
I think it helps.
And let us remember that fundraising, that foundations wouldn't have anything to do if it wasn't for us.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
We are
They
against
don't,
them.
they don't, this is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're not la la la.
I'm going to
They're
remind them
lucky.
of that the next time I talk
I
to a
put it in
foundation.
all my fundraising proposals.
I'm gonna do that now.
Put it in the
Thank you.
fundraising
Yeah.
papers.
You're welcome.
You're going to
Good
be
job.
happy that you
Please
gave
give
us your
money.
money. I would write that. Or you're going to be glad you gave this to us. You're
Yeah.
not going to see it again.
Yeah.
Or I did that constantly.
I love
Do it, everyone, do it.
In some ways, these foundations are just trying to sunset somebody else's money.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
All stewardship.
Something as well, but due to assets and endowments and stuff that perpetuate the end of someone's life for a long period of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that there is a way in which, that is a different version of the legacy question, right? Of like, what are they leaving? And we give them a good way of doing that. And I think that there is, whenever we're able to slow down, which I think is also related to these ideas of like not being transactional, of not doing the sort of compulsive scroll, but for allowing for these moments of like genuine curiosity, genuine relationship building, and genuine possibility for it to be different, I think is where there is like an opportunity for magic. We are running short on time, and so we are unfortunately not gonna get to hear questions in real time, although I think, you know, I can certainly stick around for a little bit afterwards, but any sort of closing thoughts, anything to just speak into the space, knowing that, you know, we are both ephemeral and everlasting?
I mean, just I want to say, if you're at a point where you're considering this decision, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay for something to be over. It's
really
okay
is.
for the things like the other questions that we had about like, what comes next, what comes out of it, what gets
Yeah.
born out of it.
Yeah.
We have already seen, you know, dissolution of dynamics from individuals that work together within the company, working on new projects.
Yeah.
And none of the like, well, is that our method? Did they take that from an early devising?
Yeah.
What is that?
So, I
Right?
hope they did.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But that
I
felt
hope
different when they
so.
were inside of the
Yeah.
day-to-day of it versus now we don't have that structure
Yeah.
within it. We've had, you know, new orgs making new things that we've gone and
Yes.
supported, and many of us have gone and taken a different position, you know, on a board of a different org to
Yep.
support that. So I think like there's so much that comes next, and
Yes.
it's okay for it to be done.
In this,
I love that.
Americans struggle with death.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people struggle, but Americans really struggle with death. And I think we see that in our institutions as well. And I actually read a lot about death doulas
Yes.
before I took the job at SITI, because I was like, that's what I'm about to do.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
natural.
It's natural, and I think it's, you know, decomposition and new birth, new growth, you know, the opportunity to pour into what is next is it's actually like the most generous act. Hit me. You're closing it out. Take us home.
Bye.
Yeah, it's okay to say bye.
No, actually, let me say one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do it.
no, I think bye was perfect.
It was perfect.
I don't want. It was perfect.
It was perfect.
And I want to say thank you to all of you. I want to thank the incredible Art New York staff for the whole. Yeah. We have Danielle King and Nikki Maggio and Joe Brook and Ashley J. Hicks in the room with us, who are all key to putting this entire event together. I want to again thank these incredible panelists and all of you for making time. And we will see you soon. The end is never just the end. Sometimes it is also the beginning. So thank you, thank you.